Hello, this is Matthew from the Law Loop, and today we are interviewing Katie and Janine from the Sunderland Law Clinic, here to tell us a little bit about the work they're doing in there. So would you both be able to tell me just a bit about what the Law Clinic is all about?
Absolutely, yes. So my name is Janine Anderson-Rootham, and I'm a student at Sunderland University, currently doing the Law Clinic module. I was quite eager to get involved with the Law Clinic from very early on. I started the university as a IFY student, so I had to do a foundation year first before moving into first year, and I'd heard a lot of good things about the Law Clinic as time's gone on, and it was something that I really wanted to get behind and get involved with. So, and when year 3 came round, I knew Law Clinic was something that I wanted to get behind, and it's been a very, very fun experience.
Yeah, I'm sort of the same. I've been in a different university for my first 2 years, and I knew that Law Clinic would be one of my first options for third year. And when it came down to it, I transferred back to Sunderland and I applied for Law Clinic. I just think it was a good option for me, as I'm wanting to do my SQE and become a solicitor. And I think the hands-on experience is really good for future career.
So would you be able to run me through a bit of a day in the life of what it's like going into the Law Clinic doing a bit of work?
Yep, so each student advisor has a 3-hour day a week, and we also do firm meetings 1 hour a week. And so during our 3 hours we come in, we have a bit of a chat with our supervisor. Quite a few of them are solicitors or lecturers, and they help us throughout our Law Clinic module. So we come in and we have a bit of a chat with them about the live clients that we've got at the minute, and how we can help them, sort of just touch on the documents that we've put out for them, and then we log on, we use the Clio app, and we look at different documents and put them out there for the clients.
And who are the people who generally use the Law Clinic and come to use the services you've got available?
So we generally have the local community that uses the Law Clinic. It's a type of service that's aimed at people that perhaps don't have the funds to support themselves through legal advice. We tend to cover an array of different areas of law as well. I know personally I've worked on some family law cases. I know some colleagues have recently worked on a criminal injury type case, and I think that's quite new to the Law Clinic. It's generally not one of the areas that we cover. Generally cover things like wills, a small part of immigration, and it really gives us kind of an idea of what life in practice would be on a daily basis, and I think having the support of the lecturers in clinic really helps as well, because there may be a route that we think we're going to go down with some particular advice, but they're there to lend an ear and to steer us in the right direction, and they will direct us with the client's inquiries. So that'll come into Dawn, our legal secretary. I think I've got the terminology right. I hope she's not offended by that title. Dawn does a fantastic job in the Law Clinic. She's forever helping me with Clio, because I would say that's one of the areas that I've struggled with, the internal database that we have to use. Now that's not to put anybody off, because I'm not very tech savvy. Sometimes I struggle to turn computers on or turn it off, but yeah, that's kind of one thing that I found a little bit challenging, is the Clio program. But generally it is a service that's used to support the local community.
Yep, and I think we are quite a well-established law clinic. I know that quite a few of our clients come from other solicitors if they've gone for advice, and maybe the solicitor thinks that we would be better suited to deal with it. We do get quite a few referrals through that as well.
You've sort of spoken about the way it runs and working with live clients and completing work through like a legal database. How has all that sort of culminated to get you ready for like legal practice in the workplace, do you think?
I think it gives us it gives us hands-on experience, but it also gives us a feel for things like time recording, which is a huge part of a solicitor's daily life and practice. You know, they need to record how long it's taken them to draft a letter, how long it's taken them to do research, and we have to do that as part of the module. We have to do our work and then submit how long it's taken us to do that. We also have experience in having client interviews, so we will research for that and we'll put an interview plan together, and then we'll be able to sit round a table with a client. I've had the luxury of being able to have an in-person interview with a client and also a Teams interview, and I think once you've got over your initial fear of thinking, oh goodness, how am I going to be? Am I going to be nervous? And once you've done it, I think practice makes perfect in that setting. It helps build your confidence the more that you do it, so that when you do go on to work in a firm, you're ready. You're ready to be public facing and deal with clients and be able to build rapport. Whereas I think perhaps if you go along your law degree and don't necessarily have any experience with clients, you may be a little bit more anxious or nervous on your first day in a solicitor's office.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, to be fair. I think I've had previous experience working in a solicitor's office, and it's quite nice to see, obviously while I was working there, you see the solicitors doing the sorts of things that we are doing now in law clinic. So I think it just gives you a bit of a taste of what you're going to get. And obviously we know that we've got solicitors as supervisors as well, so that we always know we're on the right track with things.
I think as well we operate kind of, well, it is a legal law firm, but as students we operate as a team, and or we kind of sit out as though you would do in an office. We have our desks set up. You know, there's a lot of quiet time. There's a lot of time where you can spin around in your chair and speak to a colleague and ask for help. And I think that's what you will find in real life as well. So yeah. In all ways, it's preparing you for that next step after university.
You sort of mentioned that you started off with a simulated client moving into real clients. What is it in working with real clients that you don't get necessarily with a simulated client, that jumping from the sort of theoretical to the practical?
Mm-hmm. I think with the simulation cases, it's a lot of kind of, I would describe it as kind of silent work. So it's a lot of independent study, it's a lot of independent research, and then there's nobody to actually interview at the end as such. However, I know what we've done this term is we have had some pretend clients come in, so like actors have taken on the role of the simulated scenario, shall we say. So having that experience and then having a real life person, how will I describe it? So I mean, I suppose when you're dealing with an actor, you know, there's only so many curveballs that they can throw you. But when you're dealing with a real life client, there's lots of things going on. Yeah. Like in particular today, myself and Katie's just had a client and it was on Teams. There's a lot of background noise going on. There could be questions asked to you that completely throw you off guard. And by getting involved, I think it just really helps you build confidence and prepares you for life after clinic, because you've experienced all these things, so that when you go out to the big wild world, shall we say, that it's not a surprise anymore. You kind of expect these things to happen, and you've had them happen, so you know how to deal with them going forward.
Yeah, I do think there's only so far that a simulated client can take you. Like you've said, that there's only so many things that a person who's pretending can say. Whereas I think sometimes with the live clients, some of the questions you ask them, maybe sometimes they hadn't thought of it themselves. And I think that makes the issue, they sort of have a bit of clarity leaving, although we can't give them advice during the interview. I think it gives them a bit more clarity of what the issues are by speaking to us, rather than having a simulated client where they've got a script of what they can say, what their issue is. So yeah, I think live clients are a lot different, a lot more in depth than a simulated client is.
I think as well we can reflect on every interview, and once you've seen your first simulated client interview, you can review it. I know myself in particularly, I was quite expressive, shall we say. I noticed on my interview that there was smiles, there was eyebrow raised and things like that, and perhaps I was overdoing it, shall we say, a little bit too much. So I was able to reflect on that, and then the next time I had an interview I was conscious of that and kind of kept my facial expressions to a minimum. Now that's not to say that I didn't use empathy and I didn't smile, I was conscious of how I had performed before, and I wanted to improve on that. And I think by able to reviewing the interviews, we can improve every single time and tweak our practice, so that when we are ready to go out into a solicitor's office and do it for real, as a trainee solicitor, or even if people choose to go down a barrister route, we've had so much experience under our belt with being able to review, improve, that when I wouldn't say we're perfect by the end of the law clinic, but definitely we're a lot better than what we were when we first started with that initial simulated case.
Yeah, and I think it's good to have a simulated case before you jump into the real thing, because a lot of the time the students, we're only in third year, we haven't sort of had that experience before, we've never filled out the documents that we have, we've never done an interview with a client. So I think it's helpful to do that and make mistakes the first time around when it doesn't matter too much, because it's not a real client. Make mistakes, then sort them out with the supervisor, and then once you get into the real thing, it does make a difference to the advice you put out there.
You said you've covered a few different areas of law. Has it made you think about what area you want to practice in, or maybe given you a little bit more insight into an area of law you hadn't quite thought a lot about?
Yeah, I think during my law degree, I've always thought about different areas of law that I would like to go into, and sometimes with different modules I think, oh, I'd really like to do that, and then I do the module and then I think, oh, like maybe that's not the direction that I want to go in. And I think with Law Clinic you get to have an experience with loads of different areas of law. We predominantly doing family law at the minute, and I am really enjoying it, but there's also been, I know quite a few people have done wills. Obviously you mentioned about the criminal side of it, so yeah, I think it gives you a bit of an idea of what you want to do after Law Clinic and after you finish your degree.
It's definitely helped me as well, in kind of narrowing down what area I'd like to go into. I've always enjoyed kind of the criminal and family side, and spending time in the law clinic and dealing more with kind of family problems. That's helped, as I say, narrow down my decision. I've really enjoyed it, and I think sometimes we have ideas that a particular area of law is going to be a particular way, and it's not. Once you get involved, it can be completely different. I've had other students who are friends who said, oh, I'm going to do commercial once I've finished university, and then they've done the commercial module and they've thought, as much as they've enjoyed it, perhaps that's not the route for them. Whereas I think with the law clinic, you are able to see a little bit more behind the scenes, get more involved, and it does help you make your decisions for the next steps.
And have you received any sort of training that will help you for things that aren't strictly limited to just inside the law clinic?
Yeah, so we've had the flows team. We've had some training on that. So that's
finding legal options for women survivors.
That's right. Yes. So that was to support women of domestic abuse and challenging situations. We've had some training on that, and that's helped with filling forms. And I know in the past the law clinic has had mediation training, and I believe Tony Spencer, the director of the law clinic, has got a few things up her sleeve for next term. So the next lot of students coming into the law clinic will have opportunities to get involved in whatever workshops it is that's being run. I know as well we work alongside the Law Works, so we're always recommended to go and have a look on that site. There's a lot of kind of lectures and advice and hints and tips for particular areas of law. I know I watched one a few weeks ago, and it was with regards to issues around housing, and how tenants were able to make complaints with regards to housing issues, and I found that very educational. And yeah, we're able to access that for free with us being a member of the law clinic. I know in the past as well the law clinics had things like support around dementia friends, and becoming a dementia friend, and that with that charity. They've had fun events on as well, like fundraisers and quizzes, and it's a really, really enjoyable module to have.
I suppose just to close out, do you have a particular moment in mind that maybe is a high point for your time you've spent so far in the law clinic?
For me, a high point, I'd definitely say having a real life client interview. I thoroughly enjoyed that, and again being able to review it and then learn from that interview and then put that into practice for the next interview. I've really enjoyed being able to do that, and I don't think that's something you would necessarily be able to do in practice. It's not something that tends to be recorded when you're in practice. You tend to just go off, do your interview and then go from there. But with obviously the experience in the law clinic, we're able to sit down, look at the interview, rewind it, review it, take away the good points, the bad points, and then, as I said earlier, adapt your practice from that. So I've really enjoyed having that opportunity.
Yeah, I think I've learned a lot about myself, especially when we are doing the recordings. Sometimes I think we have a picture in our minds of what we think we look like, and then you look back at the interview and you're like, that is not what I look like.
I think the voices as well.
Yeah.
When you listen to yourself back on a recording, I know myself personally, I always feel like my accent's really strong, whereas in daily life I don't think it's so strong.
I think it's important as well, because if you just get thrown in at the deep end with a live client, you sort of, if you notice them things, it's a bit late by that point. So I think you have a look at what you've done and you give yourself time to improve, and I think the supervisors have helped with that. Giving us pointers of what we could do to improve before we have a live client in. So I think it's been really helpful to learn more about ourselves and about the work that we're going to be doing eventually.
Yeah, I mean it's a great opportunity to give back to the community in a way, and it's a good opportunity to learn some experience that you wouldn't get strictly from just being in university. It's definitely a very worthwhile sort of experience, isn't it?
Yeah, I know I've personally taken things from it that I've used in everyday life, and in my other roles. So I do work with the police stations, and I've taken some things away from my client interviews here and used those transferable skills in my job. And I've found that that's been something great, and perhaps I wouldn't have been able to get that had I not have done the law clinic module. I think for me, the only negative I would pull from the law clinic is perhaps Clio, the program that we use. But that's just me. As I say, everybody else that I seem to speak to seems to be fantastic. And I know I'm always at you, Katie, on the saying, Katie, can you just remind me how I do this, and how do you put this program, how do you put this file on here?
I suppose that's also part of the learning curve, isn't it? I suppose every firm might have a different sort of database they use, or different systems. It's all part of the experience.
That's it. And I think we're having experience. We're being privy to that now, and you know, when we go off to different law firms, it may be a case of they don't use Clio, they'll use a different program, and we have to get familiar with that. But if anything, it kind of again improves confidence, because I'm sure before I end the semester I'll know exactly what I'm doing with it, and that's not to put anybody off, because I know a lot of the students will say to us, Janine, it's easy peasy, what are you complaining about? But yeah, on the whole, it's been a fantastic experience, and anybody thinking about taking the law clinic in their modules next year, I would say it's something great to be part of. It's great to have on your CV. It's definitely a great talking point for interview when you're going on to do your interviews after university and your journey. You can reflect back and discuss different scenarios that you've been engaged in. So anybody thinking about taking the next steps and joining the law clinic, I would definitely say go for it.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much for speaking with us today.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nick.